Chapter 6. On an autumn night, a sister. Cricket, Tova. Oliver, my brother, I love him with all my heart. Love him more than sea nettles, famous around here. More than turtles, and turtles are sweet. More than Abe, best dog ever, always at my side, with his head resting on my foot and his mind on food. My children like Oliver, too, because he has a never-ending supply of butterscotches in his pocket. I told him I don't want them to think of him as a candy dispenser, like you see at the malls. Also, I'm not a fan of dime-store confections. So, he brings them leaves instead, from various trees up north. Hemlock, hornbeam, crabapple, birch. Brings them leaves. I see in that phrase some irony, as if Oliver brings to people something that is going away. I bring you what leaves. Or else, it is he who departs quickly after making his delivery. I bring you my leave. But that's just me playing with words. In reality, we've got quite a collection, all labeled. Here's something about Oliver. The other day, I was watching a fly bounce about on the screen, wanting to get out. I have never seen my brother hurt a fly, but if I were to notice that urge, I'd tell him that flies taste with their feet. Interesting fact. Also, I'd remind him of the story about the fly in the cup of tea that Mama told, the tale where the peasant girl saves the fly from the prince's cup with her finger and blows dry its wings with her breath. Mostly, I'd make it a moral imperative that Oliver not swat, and I'd know that he'd feel bad for ever having had the thought about crushing an indispensable life. He would thank me for bringing him back to his senses. Strange how your good senses leave you sometimes. There are lots of senses, more than 5. There are no less than 12, in fact, one for each month. One for every egg in the carton, every donut in the box. One for each constellation of the zodiac. I keep my balance on these windy October days. I touch, I smell, I listen. I sense my integration with the world around. I share who I am with my 3 children and my husband, with the nutria and ospreys, mosquitoes, mice. I speak of life to others, too. I speak of it to the sleepover girls on occasional Friday nights, Alf and her crew. For them, for fun, I wish to compare the dreams of a stone to their own sweet dreams. Abby Habanera starts things off. She wants to be a doctor and save lives. Next is Claire. She has an odd fascination with cheese. Melted cheese, soft cheese, hard cheese, Edam, blue. I like her. And Mandy hopes to speak to horses and bottlenose dolphins. She thinks it's all about brain waves. Fair enough, I say, though it's also a bit about ocean waves, for the dolphin, at least. As for this stone, I tell them, holding up a rock from the field, it wishes to break free of conventions and learn to touch others. It doesn't want to hurt people, like in a Shirley Jackson story, but to connect. Deep in its heart, this stone wishes one day to become human. I'd like to go on about this, but they, being young and giggly girls, don't always take my words seriously. Stones don't have hearts, says Alpha, and the others agree. They think I'm kidding, which, really, I'm not, but why push it? So they play a board game instead of searching for answers. They roll the dice, and according to me, they are all victorious. Afterwards, I help them make chocolate chip cookies, which everyone loves. Typical slumber party in the Birch Bailey family house. Oliver's got a talent for eating a chocolate chip cookie. He can nibble the edges to sculpt a fish or a car. He's also a damn good listener. The hidden life of stones intrigues him, as does the family tree underlying everything. Which reminds me of something. It's something I said to him the other day when he was still here visiting from his home in New York. Not the city, the hills up north where he plucks those hornbeam leaves. So I asked him, "What are you writing these days?" "Something new. I liked what you wrote for the Atlantic." "This is different." "What's it about?" "Things I've been thinking." It was like pulling teeth, but I persisted. "It wouldn't hurt you to tell me." "I do," said Oliver. "No, you really don't." "Yes, it's all about family," he said. "Which you know I'm interested in," I told him. "Family's my thing. It's who I am. That, and fields, dogs, tigers, ospreys, all animals." "Dragonflies and chickens?" he asked. "You're on to me." "I like your family," said Oliver. Then he started up about cut soybean fields running alongside the woods, and about harvested cornfields that now were more like motel rooms for geese. He was trying to change the subject. I wasn't going to be distracted. "There's something that's been bothering me. Maybe that's why I'm here, to unbother you." "No." "Could be," he said. "Remember when you were 14 and Uncle Theo wouldn't leave you alone?" "I wasn't 14. "You weren't?" "Not when he was alive. I mean after he killed himself. When you would talk with him in your room." This stopped Oliver, as if I wasn't supposed to know about his conversations with our dead uncle. "Well, it's not what I expected from him. I was his company. He had things to say." "Didn't matter that he was dead, I guess?" "The dead are our family, too." "I don't like to think about death," I said, momentarily taking the pressure off my brother to explain his ongoing connection with Theo. "It scares me." "It's the dead sometimes who are scared of life," said Oliver. "You never told me about any of it," I said. "Sure I did. I would know. You really didn't." "I did tell you some," he said to me. "I know. When have I ever been interested in some?" I told him. "Some's next to nothing in my book. It's like, 'How was your day?' And you say, 'Fine.' That's telling me some. But it's not very satisfying. We are supposed to be lots, like mountains and oceans. That's what family is all about." Oliver knew what I was trying to get at. I was curious about his experience with our uncle after Theo had hanged himself. As of late, thoughts of that time have been resurfacing for me. Days ago, the fact that Oliver was coming got me thinking about it. The suicide. I was interested in how that experience, lonely and awful as it was, must have shaped my brother's life. Ollie, in my kitchen, kept his distance from me, eyes on the moon, still as stone. But there's always some movement going on, even if the most of it's on the inside. I bet the Buddha only looked to be perfectly still as he sat cross-legged by his poetry. I'd wager that thoughts streamed into him from the universe, and he was taken along for a ride on their currents, gathering truths like seashells from the shore, till he had a bucketful. Funny thing is, Allie and I were just talking about that a few days back. Not seashells so much as Buddha, the student of life. The young and quiet Buddha sitting under his tree, and how the world stirred him awake. So as I watched Oliver standing there the other night, I imagined a great deal of movement in his inner life. I always wonder what someone's got going on inside. Not to be a mind reader, not to invade their privacy. Privacy's a human right, inalienable in my book. No seer or guru, not even Big Brother or Big Business, should invade a person's privacy. But still, I am curious. How does a fox see the world, or a pine tree, a virus? Honeybees detect colors better than humans do. Blue stands out for them, purple, violet. Certain flowers. Wouldn't it be so amazing to actually see for oneself how a honeybee experiences the world? To observe like a bee for an hour, or as a willow by the water's edge, a willow that's been there for 50 years, a boulder in a field, a boulder that's been there 1,000. Well, I'd like to be a hawk, making things out from on top of the sky. I'd know things better from above. With the help of birds and trees, who knows what great things would be available to me? And, of course, people can help too, like Buddha and older brothers, sons, daughters. Eli and I try to share our perspectives. People are packed, like a 12-story building, packed with their own views. It wouldn't bore me, that's all I'm saying, just to be able to look on my own for only a moment through someone else's way of seeing. Oliver turned from the window. He moved closer. He put his hands on the table, this very table where I am now. He felt its smoothness. I heard his hand pass over the wood, slick and whispery, easy-going. And then he sat. "Did you make this?" he asked, about the table where we sat. "Now you notice." "I saw it earlier, just didn't say." "It's from those slabs of sycamore Mama had in the shed," I told him. "What's the finish?" "Beeswax." "How do you get her to give them to you?" "Give what?" "The slabs of that tree," I asked. Ollie nodded. I said, "Why do you still keep those slabs of wood?" And she said, "If you want some." And I said, "Sure." And she said, "Take what you need." And so I did. That was easy. "Surprisingly so," I said. "Nice work," Oliver told me. "It feels smooth." The table is ultra smooth. I used 200, 400, 600 grit paper. The beeswax brings out the best in the wood. I like the result. I like bees and their wax. A colony of honeybees brings good luck to the land, and this table, because of its generous beeswax, is going to bring us the best possible luck. It's a time capsule that releases information right into my hands. That information is stories. Stories of Mama and of my grandfather, who I never met, but I know he died as a result of hitting the living tree of this sycamore wood. He hit it with his car. If I take a moment to imagine it, the picture stops me in my tracks. I get this feeling of sadness. I'm caught off guard with an unavailable connection. I can never know that person, and that is difficult for me to deal with. Who was my grandfather? Why did he take his life? My sadness is a sadness of having missed him on earth, but I don't let it take me down. Mostly I want to understand why he would have done such a thing. So I listen better and hope to see. It's what I did as I sanded the sycamore wood. I listened. I tried to hear what the tree had to say, but all I heard was a vibration and the scratch of the electric sander. Then I listened as I rubbed on the beeswax. Now that was quieter, but no information came my way. Still, I know I can know things, if somebody will just help me a bit. Anyway, a table is a good place to start. It's a good place to learn something new. There are many sides to a table. I'm on one side, someone else is on another. We sit at our edges listening across. I've heard a few stories from this sycamore wood. One I've heard, the history of the sun as seen through the branches of that long-ago tree. And another, a favorite of mine, the advent of stars at night coming one by one out of hiding. Thanks to this table, I now think a lot about stars. Red giants, white dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes, supernovas that trigger the birth of even more stars. Amazing. Then there are the dead and gone stars, the ones from the beginning that are far, far away, the ones that have used up everything, all their energy. But somehow, for us, their light remains. It almost brings me to tears when I think of all that the stars do for us. The reliable stars that help pilots and sea captains, and the compassionate stars that guide children on important missions to make the world a better place. Starlight, star bright. Oh, the stories that stars can tell. And this table helps me to hear. I'm glad I made it. I like making things, not making them up, making them with my hands. I find stuff of the world and turn it into something never before seen, like toys for Olia, Alpha, and Inda Ali, or tiny carved animals for Eli's students, made out of willow oak. Oliver does the same, only he carves meaning out of moments. He carves understanding, subtle, beautiful, resonant understanding out of life itself. Now that's a talent. It's his talent. It's a gift he brings to the world, and I wish he'd do a better job sharing it. He builds not with twigs and feathers, but with relationships. Now he could find two atoms, two particles, two electrons or quarks, two family members on opposite sides of the room, and bring them together with no better tool than intention. Then he would sit and listen to what they have to say, all for the sake of a more meaningful connection to one another and the world. And you wouldn't get a thing out of it, not something that you could put on your shelf, but you would get a better sense as to why you are here, which is a sense, a most important sense, I think, that we all can use nowadays. Once, a few years back, Ollie showed me two colors, side by side. He told me how their relationship taught him to listen. It's about the inner life, he explained. The inner life of what? I asked. Of gray and white, he said. What do you mean, inner life of gray and white? But he didn't answer. Or, if he did, his answer didn't stick. He did say something, however, that resonated with me. There is a person inside you, he explained. Someone connecting the dots. There's a master builder who sees relationships everywhere, who wants to build those relationships into new, never-before-seen light of existence. Like the birth of stars from supernovas. Sure enough, he got my attention with that star talk. Then, without even giving me time to look around inside for this person, he pointed out the rain-blackened tree trunks juxtaposed with the gray, muted world. "What do you think?" he asked. Not quite the wow of the night sky, but I did like the contrast. I had the feeling there were two things I was seeing in the world. the contained look of it, and the uncontainable life of it. The life was much larger than the look, and Oliver liked me saying that. He wanted me to tell him about the uncontainable life of it. And I thought about it some. I tried to put it into words back then. I really did try. But what did I know? I'm sure it was drivel, what I had to say. Some things come easy to me that are very difficult for others. Examining feelings, mostly. I take things to heart. It's second nature for me to ask someone what's going on inside. I'll even ask a tree or a dog, so to feel them out. Other things are hard, that really should be easy. Like talking about life. I don't know what to say, which is funny because I've been part of life for 39 years. It's a daily experience. Oliver would say it's been much longer than 39 years. Maybe he's right. Thing is, it's important to push yourself every now and then to do the hard stuff. That next bit of road you're walking is the piece that will get you somewhere. It's interesting how our relationship with the natural world teaches us about ourselves and others. The earth, out of its very nature, gives lessons in getting along. There are the ups and downs of hills to work with, the headwinds and tailwinds, both the rugged and the smooth of the land, that either we accept and are happy, or we don't accept and are annoyed. A relationship with the natural world shows us how to similarly embrace our relationships with one another and to move in harmony with the human landscape. We learn from nature how to be a better human being. Such stories have been written, lots, I think. It's really no secret. And that is how Oliver's article began in The Atlantic. It began with how we can learn from nature. And then it took a turn, becoming something I'd never really thought about before. According to my brother, there's an inverse to the nature narrative. How we live with each other also teaches us about the earth. This inverse does not detract from the first narrative, but builds upon it. It says, if we get along with each other, moving in concert with our brothers and sisters, our friends and enemies, our living and, yes, even our dead companions, then we may better understand the true nature of the earth, not as a planet, but as a living being. Now don't get all hung up on that, Ollie insisted. Don't let the idea of an animate earth put a stop to the thought, or then you'd miss the point. He seemed to be saying that if we were to live our lives increasingly for others, we would gain insight into the reason for our earth, as in, why in the world there is an earth at all. According to Oliver's thesis, the earth exists equally and full of hope for each of us. It is here in part for our realized individualities. But that is only half of it. It is here in full when our individualities serve not ourselves, but one another. And I bet not many people have thought about our earth that way, as though for one it has hope, and for two it has an intent, and its hope and intent both have to do with us. Well, it is certainly something to... Mama! Yes? What are you doing? Just thinking. About what? Our earth. Oh. And Uncle Ollie. When's he coming back? Maybe Christmas. Oh, can I have an apple? Yes. I don't like the green ones. There's a red one. I saw it. Take the red. That was my daughter, Olia, 7 years old, the most affectionate and snuggly of my children. Sometimes she's got this look to her, a certain three-quarters view when the light is just right. It's there on her face, in the way she holds herself. And I know she's going to make a difference in our world, a real difference. By which I mean something good, of course. Olia. It's an olive wood tree in her name. She's got this wiggly tooth, and she really wants to lose it and meet the tooth fairy. I've never met the tooth fairy, but Leah often gets what she wants, which is nothing about being spoiled, and everything about having the right way with people. People open up to her. They tell her things, and she's not even asking. The other day, Oliver told her that when he was 7, I threw a brick at his head and knocked out all his teeth. And then he made this face to show the hideous result, tightening his lips so to hide his teeth. Leah laughed at his ugly mug. Oliver then gave her his big smile, toothy and bright, revealing his deception. My brother is older than me, so he should be the serious one. But he can be a total kidder. He just left an hour ago, and he's fresh in my mind. Everything is fresh, including Leah, including apples, including the inner life of this table, including the October wind through the window, and here Abe at my feet. What a good dog she is. It's about a 6-hour drive back home for Ollie. So he's barely out of the state by now, up 301, heading toward Wilmington. I told him to stop in Lewis to see all the migrating birds just north of Rehoboth. Cape Henlopen, Beach Plum Island, Gill's Neck. He won't do it. Eli and I thought of living there once before kids, or I thought about it most. Wherever life is, there you are, which is what I say. And Eli agrees, which is also his exact argument for why he'd prefer to live in Baltimore. He thinks there's more life in a city than in town or the country. He thinks about local economies and human conflicts. All the kids there who need help. He thinks how better race relations and more thoughtful business enterprises will save the world. I'm a field girl, a moss girl, a real shellfish girl. I prefer the smell of salt in the air and the gritty softness of sand and mud on my bare feet. Somehow, Eli and we're perfect regardless of our differences. He loves me from the very beginning, and I love him to no end. Yesterday, wherever I looked, I saw birds. Nuthatches, brown thrashers, dark-eyed juncos, all sprung from air, born out of the quiet ground, on branches and wood piles, on fence posts, and kicking about among the fallen leaves. Those birds were really just questions. All day yesterday I felt millions of unanswered things. It was birds reminding me. And then there was Abe at my side like always, and the pressing air, present and unbiased, working its way through me, nudging me to speak my mind. I knew Oliver would be leaving soon, and I had things to ask that I'd been wanting to ask for years. So at night, children in bed or elsewhere, light in the kitchen concentrated near lamps, the sink freshly clean where the dishes had been done, I looked at my brother and asked about Theo. I came out and asked about Uncle Theo's death. Eli had been gone since 3, out with his running buddy Orland to see the Terrapins play a night game. The Terrapins against the Crimson Wolf Pack, the Fighting Falcons, the Tar Dogs, or I really don't care. College football is not my thing. It's about the only thing Eli likes that I don't. If we were to do an accounting, it might show that I like the whole of existence a tad more than he does, but only because in the book of measurements, my appreciation of cordgrass and periwinkles carries an ounce more weight than his fondness for football. "You know," I began, Oliver in the room listening at the window. Listening to me? I wondered. More likely the moon. I let my words latch on before I continued. "We've never really talked about it." Oliver pulled away from the waning moon rising. He sat with me at the sycamore table, hands on the surface, face like a torch lit from within. Here Abe slept next to me, her bone beneath her paw. Very good dog. "Did you make this?" he asked. "We've been over that before." "Sorry." "I've been thinking about him." "Him? Grandpa Ash?" "Well, yes, him too," I said. "But Uncle Theo." "Oh, right. I'm not surprised." "What do you mean you're not surprised?" "I mean I could tell you had something on your mind," he said. "How did you know it was Uncle Theo?" "Well, I didn't. I wasn't sure. But if you thought there was something troubling me, you could have asked." "Could have. But maybe it wasn't so. Then you would have been annoyed." Annoyed? Me? What was he talking about? I was only annoyed that he kept things to himself. He would never come out and say. Had never once thought to fill me in. "I was in my room that night when you came home," I said. "Do you remember?" "You in your room? No. I wasn't really thinking about you." I waited for my brother to be more brotherly. "Okay," he said. "I'm here. What's on your mind?" As if it was all him now, as if I hadn't started the conversation. "Birds," I said, "lots of them. They've been at me all day." He nodded. My reference to birds seemed to make perfect sense. "I never understood what actually happened to you," I said. "To me?" "For you," I said. "You know, it's still happening," said my brother. "It didn't stop on that day. It started." I took that as an opening, a willingness to talk. "You didn't call that night. I would have right away. Seeing him hanging, I would have called home, gone outside and waited for help. You stayed there. You stayed with it, by yourself. Weren't you afraid?" "You've asked me this before." "No." "Yes." "Well, obviously you didn't answer it to any satisfaction." "Well, there was nothing to be afraid of," said Ollie, staring at what I hoped was his emerging memory, though it may have only been the corner of the room with a lamp and side table. "You know, at first Uncle Theo told me to go, sort of demanding, actually. But when I didn't go, he wanted me to stay. He was with me, telling me not to leave, asking. It was lots of questions, like your birds." "You see, that's it," I said. "Uncle Theo talked to you. That's so interesting." "What makes it interesting?" "You think it's not?" "Well, I mean, what makes it interesting to you?" said Oliver. "Well, if the dead are not dead," I said, "if they talk after, if there's more to them, well, it makes you think differently about life." "You know, Cricket, what you said is important. If life goes on after death, what then is life?" Oliver must have thought that's all I wanted to hear. But it wasn't. I wanted details, not more questions. Tell me about Theo. Well, at first, of course, I thought he was dead, and, well, he was. But he wasn't, also. I tried to make sense of it. You see, that's a good thing. Well, you hate death. Well, I like your experience, I said. That's what I want to know. You never talk. Things take time, said my brother, which to my mind was just an excuse. Who knows if something is really true, he said. Was that your thought, I asked? That it was all in your head, all wishful thinking? No. So why are you even bringing it up? Well, you're probably right. I am right, I said. You know, Cricket. Oliver stopped on my name, wanting me to give him a break, wanting me to think before I spoke. Then he went on, lots of things you don't understand right away. Well, a few things you do. Children, puppies, they're easy. Kindness in the eyes, the declaration of thunder. Declaration, with a loud assertion, how it shouts its message, all right there, no barrier to understanding with thunder. A turtle climbing out of the marsh, I added to the list. Move to the side, let it pass, never stand in another's way. Well, you see, you get things, Cricket. Some things, not your things. You don't need my things. Everyone needs your things. There, I said it. I knew it was true. My brother has a deep responsibility to the world. I've always known he has. He is someone to listen to. The world here and now needs his perspective. No, he countered. Everyone needs to be fully themselves, and to know their being has an affinity to everything. Well, you can't like everything, I said. Well, not what I mean by affinity. What do you mean? A closeness. A feeling that you are next to things, that you share a border with everything in existence. You are, in fact, so close, you might even be able to participate in their story. Who knew? Exactly. People mostly relate to things they're already familiar with, but it's too much staying in place. You've got to move yourself toward things you don't know. Imagine something that comes into your life, but it doesn't interest you and you hardly care, or it frightens you and you turn away. You need to change how you think in order for something unfamiliar to be seen. For to be seen? Well, for you to be interested enough to pay attention, he clarified. My words, if you're not interested, well, they could just put you to sleep. Like now, I said, a bit frustrated. It's not that I'm not interested, but what I really want from you are your thoughts about Theo, not explanations. Things have their own pace. You've got to respect that. Maybe you're wrong, I said. Maybe you're wrong, and you've got to push things along to speed them up. Not everything has to wait for the perfect time. Not everything has to be all worked out. I just want to be part of the story. I want to participate in the story. Well, I wasn't really talking about you, said Oliver. Yes, you were. About me not being ready. No, not you. About me not being ready. About Theo not being able to move from his suicidal mood. About me not being able to find the thought to explain my experience. So you figure it by talking. You share the experience. Why not do that? I couldn't do it at the time. I tell Eli everything, right when it happens. We try to understand things then and there. Sometimes that works, said my brother. But this has taken many years. And even today, there are things Theo and I are only now beginning to understand. Well, just so it's clear to you, I told him, from here on out, I always want to know things straight away. I told you about Theo a long time ago. I know I did. Murmurations, all. I was intrigued, and you'd never say more. What are murmurations? Those flocking starlings that make morphing black forms in the sky? I like those, said my brother. So beautiful, I agreed. But it's all surface details. It's not what's going on inside. That, Cricket, takes time to know for sure. It's a long trial. This made me angry. When was time going to be now? I wanted what my brother had. He had it. I didn't. This is a trial, I said. I'm sorry, said Oliver. I'm considering my words. I sighed, which was loud enough, I hoped, to make him stop considering and start telling. With Uncle Theo, I was right there with him after he died, and suddenly, after he was gone, I knew him better than ever. But how was that even possible? He wasn't there anymore, was he? I don't know, was he? I was remembering it on the drive up, my brother said. Anticipating. Anticipating what? This? What this? Your questions, he said. I've been seeing birds everywhere, too. As interesting as that was about the birds, I left it alone. Did you ever have any suspicions? I asked. What? That he might one day kill himself? Or that when I arrived at his house he had already done it? I don't know. That something was wrong for him, I guess. Not really. It was his birthday. He hated his birthday. I was there to bring him a pound cake. Mama does love making pound cake for people, doesn't she? I said. And there was music. Beethoven. He loved Beethoven. The record, I remember, was stuck and kept repeating part of the Ode to Joy. That was strange. I overheard Papa, with you, long ago in your room. I've always wanted to ask about it. Him telling you, saying, you gave meaning to Theo's suffering. What meaning is that? I'm asking you, I said. Do you know the purpose of suffering? What good is suffering? What good's death? Mighty questions, for sure. They flew back and forth in the night room. They winged about like birds. They landed on shelves, on windowsills, on the back of my hand with their tiny bird feet. All my questions, pricking my skin. Ollie then told me things I wanted to hear. I don't know why it took so long for this conversation to happen. Maybe we just were finally ready. Maybe he knew we were ready. He always seems to know things. The time was ripe. The night made room with its open arms. And my quiet sat still and absolute as I listened, like how I am in the marsh on my own, no worries, just there for whatever the telling. When I saw Uncle Theo, Oliver began, I knew he was dead. It's a picture I can't get out of my head, but I knew also that it was true. I really thought he might come out of his body and tell me why he'd done it. Maybe I was waiting for that to happen. Maybe that's what I've been trying to get to ever since. Death is not the end of life. I had never even thought about that until I was face to face with it. And I guess it was a good feeling to have because it kept me from running away. How can you have a good feeling when something so terrible has just happened? But the feeling hung in the room, and I'm not playing with words. It clung to everything. It took over my body, my bones. I could literally feel it in the center of every cell like billions of tiny sparks. And if that's how my body was going to be, I had to stand by and listen. You'd think I would have been afraid, but I wasn't. Theo's body wasn't Theo anymore. Simple fact, he was not in his body. So where was he? And then, pure and simple, he was with me. No different from how you and I are together now, except that then neither of us was moving. Not our lips, not our fingers, not our breaths that I could tell, not even our thoughts. It was total stillness, and it was total sadness, which I didn't know what to do with. I stood in the doorway, looking into his room, feeling sadness. That was the most difficult part. His suffering, but I didn't really know about it yet. Just his overwhelming sadness. So I remember, I guess I told Papa about that, and maybe you heard him trying to reassure me. That's what you heard. Why would I have told you any of this? I didn't want to tell anyone. It was private. It felt like a secret. But Papa stole it out of me. Well, drew it. That's better. I wasn't ready to give any of it, but Papa reached in anyway, and I wasn't mad at him, but I wasn't happy either. You were listening in, I guess. Some things are not meant to be heard. Thing is, and this is what I was remembering as I drove here the other day, there was light in that room. Theo might have thought that death was his only light, but he wasn't seeing it right. I wasn't seeing it either. Well, not with any real understanding. But there it was anyway, filling up the room where he hung. Light of the sun, evening light, nothing dark. It didn't speak, but it sure as life wanted to make itself known. I saw Theo's body in the room with that blue suit and his bare feet, a pile of clothes on the bed, all folded. I saw all that. But I also saw light. The light wasn't sad. Something else was. A cloud of sadness, a wall, a heaviness. And then he showed up together with this sadness. Theo did, pleading with me not to leave, blocking the light as if he was blocking my way. And I felt this struggle between light and darkness. It was an overwhelming weight, and I couldn't move. I still know it today, though we've both learned to move with it, Theo and I. He's still with me, you know, to this day. Not now, not right now, and not as a solid, breathing being, but as a self without a self, if that makes sense. He hasn't changed much, but he's working on it. Well, as it turned out, I was to be his advocate. I was thrust into that role. Wasn't my choice. Didn't even think about it. Maybe in the larger scheme of things it really was my choice. Maybe I did know this would happen. Maybe I chose to be there in that room at the time of his death. That's something I grew to think over the years. And I grew to understand that life exists well beyond any granting of it to the soul, or any whisking or wishing it away. It is not turned on at birth and shut down at death. Don't look at life as some process of metabolism and reproduction that is found only in the living, because it is a constant for all, living and dead, and it cannot be removed from the equation that results in you and everything else in the universe, from star to stardust. Life cannot be removed, not from a tree, a stone, a worm, an uncle. There is no such cruel and unusual punishment as being without life. Of course, cruelty exists on Earth. I'm not saying it doesn't. But cruelty is really just pain that masks itself as something heartless. the pain of missing out on something specific to your well-being. And pain, who knows how much it takes, but pain can undo you. So transform the pain and solve any cruelty before it happens. Well, easier said than done, though I am saying it anyway. And I want you to know that there was no cruelty in the room, just pain. I didn't understand it at the time. It took me years to understand. What I did sense in that room, like I said, was light. Another word for it, compassion. The light at the window, the inner compassion of everything. It's my one great talent, a talent for light. And Cricket, if there's one thing to take away from what I'm saying, it's this, that at the foundation of life is light coming from an omnipresent window. That light is always there. It's something by which to see. And I've come to understand not only the pain in that room, but also that I was standing in the presence of compassion. And the sun was down, and it was growing late, and Theo was dead. But he wasn't gone. I stood by myself, not alone. We're never alone. That's the honest truth, Cricket. Almost 14, in the room with a dead body, and I wasn't alone, and I wasn't afraid of death either. The world stood to opening before me. It was a new world. And the amazing thing, if I think about it, is that I was somehow ready for it. I don't know why I was ready for it. But because I was ready, I didn't run. Maybe it would have been better to call home, as you suggested, to ask for help. I mean, I hadn't gone there for this. I just wanted to give him the pound cake. I just wanted to share a new joke and ask about crab season. I wanted him to be happy for once in his life. I didn't want to find him dead. And yet I saw it anyway. On his birthday, I saw tears on his face, not on the face of his body that hung there, but on a dark face that appeared out of nowhere, inconsolable, and at a loss for light. How was I supposed to understand all of that? Did I even want to? I stayed in place anyway, kept myself open. It wasn't the end of the world. Somehow it was a beginning. We can all edge our way to greater understanding, Cricket. It's around the corner from where we are. It's just over the hill, just the other side of our absolute sureness. I steer myself that way, away from sureness, to greater comprehension. I keep looking. And I like doing it, which is what I did for years instead of talking it out. That's all I was trying to tell you earlier. You've got to steer your own way through. The mind meets barriers to understanding things, but you've got to keep at things if you ever want to get anywhere. And maybe you leave for a while, go for a bike ride, come back. Maybe you keep things private like I did. Listen to music in your room. Go walk in the woods, through the mud, the poor parts of town, thinking about people, real and difficult lives of people. And you sail the seas without leaving the shore. For years at a time you travel far without leaving your place. You clutter your mind with growing up, with high school physics, English tests, baseball practice, friends who take you driving in their convertible cars, beer in the cooler, Queen, Joni, Bach, Beethoven, who you don't even really like. Why don't you like Beethoven? Well, he too had a difficult life. And 1,000 radio tunes, 1,000,000 buzzing insects, but none so resonant as that evening in April when you stared death in the eye and felt omnipresent light of existence. And you go to college, the West Coast, visit Alaska, come to the edge of the world, as many edges as you can find. There are always edges. The shoreline, the horizon, this table. Each and every relationship begins at the edge of ourselves, where we then step into another. Once, and this is something I never told you, once there was a girl half my age whose mother I had grown to love. I never told you about her, a girl whose mother was dead, had drowned in the river. The girl, who I also loved, she stood in the flickering light and grasses behind her house. Her mother was with her, real as bread to a baker. They spoke with each other in the green, gleaming backyard. I saw them both, because I stepped from my edge. I met them halfway one evening in Albany, and the three of us walked along the Hudson. And there was another girl. It's not always girls. Theo is no girl. But this girl, she couldn't remember what it was about peacocks. She asked me, but what did I know? She taught me to dance just by moving her thoughts. You've never seen me dance and don't want to. The thing is, she taught me, and she asked about peacocks. I had nothing to say about peacocks, but I had a few stories to tell about trees and red-tailed hawks, and I tried to learn the steps just as she taught. I was upset with myself that I knew nothing about peacocks. She laughed at my lack of grace and my lack of knowledge, but we got along. She wasn't being mean, just she was dead, and it was difficult for her to accept that she could no longer dance in the world. She was sad that she'd never see a peacock again. My stories may have helped her, but mostly I think it was the effort I put in. Every relationship is an edge, and at every edge is a door, and at every door a new way of seeing. I've always been open, and it's not just me who needs to do this. We could all stand at the edge of ourselves and move forward more. We could all open a few new doors here or there. Understanding is there for everyone, Cricket. You just have to find it. But it is full of illusions, too. Understanding is built of illusions and confusions, light and dark, a little of everything, like one of Mama's stews. Understanding is there in the balance. It is there in the unending effort we make to see it. And so, you are right. I didn't talk as much as I should have. That's fair. But how could I just say things that I wasn't ready to say? I was a boy, a slow grower, an even slower knower. Things didn't make sense to me at first. But once I get to the truth of the matter, it sticks, it cannot leave. I'm just saying. And more to the topic at hand, even now, when it seems Theo is not here, I know he's nearby. He wants to spar, to fight. He wants me to see how only death has the power to console him. And that kind of talk is an irritation in my soul. It is grit that I want to turn into a pearl. And so I try to invoke something different. I try to invoke another light, the light I saw in his room that day, the light I still see no matter the darkness. Yet he insists I pay attention when he tells me he sees nothing. And so I push myself, my words, my concern to a better understanding. We help each other, I think. He is as much my guide as I am trying to be his. There was a moment after my brother finished when I forgot where I was. I'd been living in his words, content in their sound and meaning. My body nodded in silent agreement. Then I felt the gentle weight of Here Abe sleeping on my left foot. I moved my foot, disturbing Abe's sleep, and spoke up. When I go to the marsh, I pay attention. My favorite field on Porpoise Creek Road. Don't know what I'm listening for. When you hear it, you know, said Oliver. A deer appears, a quail, a dragonfly. I love dragonflies. Animals are aspects. They amplify you. I'm not interested in me, I said. I'm interested in them. Like what Buddha did under his tree, Oliver said. You illuminate reality by taking it in. Funny you should bring him up, I said. Allie and I were talking about Buddha and his proclamations. The 8 Noble Truths, said Ollie. People sure do need help. Do you think it's why we're here on Earth? To see things more truthfully and save the world from our own misconception? Oliver didn't respond, which made me mad. You don't have anything to say about that? I do. In the beginning, I asked myself, why did Theo kill himself? No one should ever want to do that, I thought. I came up with answers, none of them true. He was impatient. He hated himself. He hated life. He was suffering. He wasn't strong enough. Really, I had the misconception that I knew the answer. So in asking myself why Theo would kill himself, I wasn't involving him. I didn't even need him for an answer. Then one day I discovered that through asking myself I was actually soliciting him, soliciting his participation. And I had to look for the answer coming from how he was involved, coming from outside of myself. And that made all the difference. What did he say? He didn't say anything. But I was surrounded by darkness, which was an empty and fruitless experience. I took it to be his answer that death was one thing he saw that he could do for himself. Death was a light. And that made perfect sense, not to my way of being, but to his. I didn't know that death could be a light, I said. I never thought of it either. Light can be so many things. When death is the only light, however, well, that's terrible suffering. You need a better guidebook. Is there a guidebook to suffering? There's help, I think, said Oliver. Ancestral, spiritual, societal. Others to help you see what you're going through. On Earth, Theo was overwhelmed by his own existence. He was eased by the idea that if he killed himself, he was taking on his life for himself. He wasn't just going to let it destroy him. He would act as his own decider. We've talked about that over the years. You actually talk. Well, not quite how we're talking, but yes. How could I ever tell him that what he had done was wrong? If someone is suffering, they want to stop suffering, and they'll do whatever they can. If life is what makes you suffer, then remove yourself from life. At least remove yourself from what you think life is. And that's what Theo did. In a way, it's also what the Buddha said when he talked about enlightenment. Enlighten yourself out of the cycle of existence. But what if suffering is actually intense caring for life? If suffering is seen as a need for greater life, then your pain is soothed not by harming yourself or by finding a way out, but by bringing yourself better to the world. My brother paused, and I let the idea sink in. Driving down, he continued, that was on my mind. I was looking across the Delaware Bay when I thought it. Life in the world is not something to escape, like the Buddha thought. It's something to keep at until you break through to a larger way of seeing. Then you have transformed your suffering into a creative force. Well, that last bit's from Martin Luther King. Do you suffer like that? I asked my brother. Have you transformed it all? There's always something new to take on, he said, like how you yourself suffer when you see a bird that's crashed into your window, stunned to death on the ground, or when you see a dying tree at the edge of the woods, a starving child anywhere. It takes a lot of empathy sometimes to get through the day. It was a night like this, I began, my mind like a mirror brimming with reflections. Eli and I had rented a cabin in the Shenandoah Valley at the edge of a lake. Way back was before children. We slept out under the stars. I remember listening to the dark water, falling asleep. Then we both woke up to a woman singing from across the lake into the darkness, an aria. To Eli it sounded like a crying animal. To me it sounded like a broken heart, a song of revealed pain and darkness. Maybe that's what it was like for you with Theo. But I didn't see a light. I saw a fox, though, out of the corner of my eye. I love foxes. Well, standing there in the dark. A miracle how close it was, the animal. Eli and I listened to the sadness until the singing ended and the world went quiet. And then the fox slunk off into the deeper night. All I could think as I went to sleep is that the fox had been there to absorb the song, to take the sadness of the woman and carry it away, so it wouldn't bring down the trees or depress the fishes of the lake. Animals do so much for us, and we don't even know. In the morning, I remember it, there was this glinting of dew where the fox had been. So there's that light you were talking about. It was all I needed for breakfast. A feeling of purpose. Why else are we here but to take up this chance to meet one another and grow in ways that bring us closer? Oliver nodded. You get it. You always have. We're here for one another. And the farther you go with your relationships, the closer you get. I caught a glimpse of the moon through the window, like rubbing elbows. Closer to what? I asked. As below, so above. The more I know about worms, the more I know of the stars. And the better I move with Theo, the better I move with life. I sat with that. And though his many words did not tell the whole story of Uncle Theo, not everything I wanted to know at least, well, I didn't protest. Maybe because I myself was out of words, tired from the day and so much to think about. But if I'm being honest with myself, which I always am, I did feel closer, a nearby kinship, to Oliver, to Theo even. The beeswax, the sycamore table, the light of the room, it was as if I had moved ever so slightly in some meaningful direction, even as I sat at the kitchen table. It was good to be with him. I'm glad my brother came to visit, bringing leaves and fresh ginger that he'd grown. I didn't know you could grow ginger in the Northeast, but he had. He'd pickled some of it for me and my family and for our parents, who lived down the road in the same house where Oliver and I grew up. We grew as people do, and I eventually ended up not far from the tree, here, with Eli, because I like it here and because Eli loves me more than Baltimore. Oliver, it seems, wanted to know the trees of other regions, so he moved away. I could ask Oliver why he left Maryland. I could inquire like a prosecutor to learn every little detail about his life. Sometimes, though, it's better not to push. Sure, I want to know things, but sometimes you've got to let a person be. No questions asked. Here or away, it's no big deal. These are words that describe where people live in the world. Some live here, some away, Both are good. Both have challenges. I love the world no matter where a person chooses to live, though I don't much care for it when it's been clear-cut, or when its soils have been depleted of worms and humus. To be precise, I don't like the people who do the depleting. Don't much care for those who manicure their lawns, destroying habitats. It troubles my sleep, like other wrongs done to our earth, such as pesticides and fracking. To the eye of a hawk, a neatly mowed field with no ant-hills, well, it must look like a lifeless desert. Last night, after a quiet moment of thoughts like those, I heard Hear Abe sigh in her sleep. I saw her twitching with dreams of chasing squirrels, her right paw resting upon her favorite bone. Such a good dog. I lay a gentle pause of my own upon my morphing thoughts, and then I said to my brother, "When Theo died, things changed. I didn't get the change back then. I didn't get you. You shut yourself in your room after Theo. I remember once going in because I heard you talking. There was no one in there but you, and you got mad, but I just wanted to know. I hate all death, you have to know that. I hate what it does to people. You had no right to be mad. I did." Oliver sat across from me, looking off into that corner again, the one with the lamp. I could tell he was working out the right words. He reminded me of Mama, how back in the day she'd take a moment before beginning one of her stories, searching for the truth in her considered language. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's a mad, mad world. Mad, 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 mad." Which made me laugh. I sat at the sycamore table, suddenly with thought of old movies. My mind was off and running, who knows where it was going, when, at once, I was startled by the sound of something hitting the floor. Looking over, I saw my son, Inda Ali. He was stooping to pick up whatever it was that had fallen. He'd come into the room, and I had not even noticed. My oldest child, Indaba. He's the best of all boys. A Zulu word. He likes the name Ali better, like the boxer, but I love Indaba. It means conversation between people that comes to deep understanding. A true meeting of minds. A connection such as Indaba brings protection to the world. Connection, protection. And with that, what a glad, 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 glad world it would be. There he stood by the wood stove, suddenly involved with Ali and me. The wood stove's a good wood stove. Not top of the line, but it does its job. In its own way, it warms our lives. Just no way does it warm as much as my son. 14 years old last February. Ali, not the wood stove. I don't know why I keep mentioning that stove. Thinking about winter, maybe. Chopping wood, carrying and kindling. Mama's birthday, Valentine's Day. Same day as Ali's. Don't know where Ali is now, late afternoon. He doesn't tell me where he's going. Tells me some things. Doesn't tell me everything. Bits and pieces, some of which I like especially. I like his thoughts on Buddha and other living things. He's the one told me about how dragonflies transform from water nymphs, shedding their old skin and exposing their wings much like a butterfly. Wow, I said, I didn't know. He did a drawing of it. Lots of his thoughts become drawings. I told him that the first ever words of our world were drawn. Later they were written on birch bark. Isn't that interesting? And Olia, not the olive tree, Leah, my youngest daughter. She's 7. The tree, the olive, my daughter as well, I find them both to be sources of inspiration. She's nearby, eating an apple, a red one, as I sit in the kitchen, thinking on things. I hear the crunch. Whereas Alpha, well, she just turned 11 on Friday, which was the reason for Oliver's visit. Everyone was here yesterday. Mama, Papa, Nellie, Eli's parents, friends. All for Alpha, our one alphabet, of 11 so far letters, and infinite stories. Well, she's outside now, like always, looking for old bird nests, wasps in the woodpile, making things out of nature just like her mother. "So, how long have you been standing there?" I asked Ali last night, after he'd snuck up on my brother and me. "Well, you're not very observant for a naturalist," said my one and only son, which sort of hurt, but I knew he didn't mean it to. I'm not a naturalist anyway, not like Rachel Carson or Johnny Appleseed, not like Charles Darwin, who, I guess it's true, that's what he was, though I never think of him like that. The natural world is just a passion of mine. Well, maybe I am a naturalist at heart. The world is amazing, and dragonflies are my new heroes. The air's a blast and a bloom with living things, just like the should-be soil, the ocean, even the sand. You can find life anywhere on the planet. Just look. I'm totally serious. Well, Ali got a drink from the fridge. He used a mug with a Van Gogh painting on it, Starry Night. Now tell me that I'm not observant. I keep my eye on things. Tell me that I don't. Tell me I don't watch him well, because I do. I put him in my heart. I keep him company, warm his soul better than any wood stove does, and let him leave as he pleases. Live as he pleases. That's what I mean. Lemonade poured over ice. I saw it. Ripped blue shirt, light brown skin, dark wavy hair, growing tall, handsome, so handsome, like his father, and comfortable in this world, happy among others. How fortunate is that? Very, I tell you. It is a gift to be at home in life, a gift everyone on earth deserves. He sat at the table to clink with us, his uncle and me. He sat to share, to listen in.